All right. So
Okay.
here we go. We have understanding the Mars cycle and brain stage development. Mars cycle, okay, is typically 2 years. It's that outgoing energy that we talk about, that expression, the development of 2 year stages in the process of establishing independence, autonomy, and personal authority. So, like I said, we did a workshop all on Mars and the sign that your child's Mars is in, and how to really nurture that establishing independence and autonomy. So feel free to check that out. Now, in terms of the brain stages, the brain grows in alternating 2 year stages. So there's, like Cornelia said, there's growth spurts and consolidating stages. So all through development up until the early 20s, our kids are going through this development. There are significant changes in children's capacities start precisely at the rapid periods, and then they correlate with the Mars cycle of these periods. So this seems to, this cool correlation running together. So we're going to talk about sort of the brain development and how it correlates to the cycle throughout. So this is, priceless information for parents who love astrology, is bringing this developmental stuff together along with the cycle. The Mars return at each stage, we're going to share that, like the information that's happening planetarily, as well as the information that's happening with the brain. So you can look at different transits that your child's going to be going through at these different developmental times. Okay.
Okay, this is an important thing to understand, that neuroplasticity is a term that refers to the brain's ability to change and adapt as a result of experience. It can happen for two reasons: as a result of learning, experience, and memory formation. But it also can change due to damage to the brain, in which healthy parts of the brain take over those damaged parts' functions. This is called functional plasticity. The other is called structural plasticity. Environment and nutrition play an essential role in this process. Brain damage can also be caused by psychoactive substances that lead to detrimental effects on the brain and behavior. We'll get into drugs later on, but plasticity occurs throughout the lifetime, but most change occurs in the early years. As we gain experience, some connections are strengthened by frequent use, while others are eliminated for disuse through a process called pruning. Periodically, the brain is like a gardener. It has to come along and say, well, we're not using this, let's get rid of that. And we'll help with those that are working.
Okay. So 90% of the child's brain development happens before age 5, which I found fascinating, but this isn't, to scare anyone. Basically, the 90% of those basic natural development of the sensory motor skills, like sitting up and rolling over, walking, using your hands, and eating, like these are huge. This is a huge benchmark where these sensory motor skills become natural and easy so that the child can do them without thinking.
Piaget's cognitive stages are very interesting. He was a profound thinker. He was a psychologist who studied children. He worked for, I think he worked for the education department, but he came up with these cognitive stages mostly by observing children, that he noticed that some children at a certain age could not perform certain skills. And so they had to move on and learn some other skills before they could solve these later problems. So you can see that he has these 4 stages. The first, birth through 2 years, is where you're learning all these basic sensory motor stages. Then when you move into between 2 and when you start school, you have this pre-operation. Gosh, sorry, can't say the word. Pre-operational stage. They're using their mental ability to represent events and objects in various ways by using symbols. For instance, a child can take a block and roll it across the rug as if it's a car, so that they are becoming familiar with symbols. Then they get into the concrete operational stage. And this is where they're learning things, but it's hands-on learning. That's what they mean by concrete. The child becomes more stable, thinks operationally, and uses more reasoning rather than intuitive thought. So she can stack up blocks, but you see, she has to have a physical thing that she's operating to learn with. It's not in her head. But by the age of 10, we move into, or 11 years, we move into the formal operation stage, where now you can carry on the same kind of problem solving, but you can do it in your head, like she's doing the math on the board. And the interesting thing is that he did all of this and came up with these stages through observation alone, but his theories have been verified through brain research, where they've actually see the differences where the changes actually happen at what age. So it's been verified by actual brain research. I think that's rather fascinating.
Yes. There's some great books that Cornelia put together, a list of some great books you might want to pick up for this particular stage. I mean, the brain stages, but K to 5, that first one is really, really great. But these others can really help during these teen years and for understanding what's happening, in the brain, I just think that knowledge is power in terms of really understanding what's happening to our children mentally and physically at these times that are reflective in their behavior. So we can really support them in a conscious way.
I can say that because I'm giving advice to my son with his son. He was, why is he doing this? I said, because he's at this particular stage and this is what's going on. And don't be put off by it. Why is he rebelling? Why is he being angry with me? Why is he doing all these things? I said, because it's a job of the teenage boy to rebel against the father. It's just part of their development to show that I'm a man,
Yeah, which most dads want, right? I mean, the goal is for them to step into manhood, right? So that comes with a little bit of testing against dad to make sure they're ready and that they're doing it, that they can,
right.
And this is what we're all
if they want to be a dad like their dad.
Yeah, or they want to be a dad like their dad. So this is
so as a parent, it's always good to be informed. So knowing a lot about the teenage brain will really help you understand how to deal with the kid that's you're going, my God, what's happened to my kid?
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Yeah, I had fun with my teens. I had a great time with them. All of my kids were a year apart. So it was like they were all going through the same stage at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah. Because I think that's probably something that a lot of parents would struggle with, is when you've got kids at different stages. And right. I love this information because, I always felt like astrology would help me know my child in this unique way, be able to really nurture and support his growth in a conscious way. And so that when these more challenging years came, that I would be able to really enjoy them and be there in an effective way to just help further that development, instead of like freaking out, oh my God, I've got a teen on my hands, what am I going to do with this kid, but really just being able to enjoy it and engage in a way that really continues helping his development, which is why I find this material so fascinating and the research so fascinating. And of course, because I love astrology, how it correlates and can be seen in the astrology and the life cycles and the planetary cycles is fascinating. And I think it's a wonderful way of validating astrology.
I think so too.
It's just, that's my biggest goal. And one of the things I just really am passionate about is just wanting to bring validity to this sacred tool. I mean, it's right there. You can line it up right there with everything that's happening to us as humans, and this experience and this growth process. And so I just find this fascinating, and I love this talk. I'm glad we did it. And I hope that, anyone who's listening really finds some great tools and tips and sees the value of this information and in conjunction with how you can follow it through the astrology for all of us astrology lovers. I think it's good for both just parents in general, and then it's a boost and like an added bonus to those of us who love astrology and see the
Right.
correlations.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
notice they're all wearing jeans.
I know, right? Well, that's teens. Cool. That look cool. So ultimately, just a quick summary. I think we've really overstated it, and we know that the growth spurt stages are those intake phases where they need lots of stimulation experiences to expand their learning and build those new pathways in the brain. And then the consolidation stages are the practice phases where they're learning to really put the information into action, the skills and operations into practice for mastery before going on to the next stage. And how much we can support them and how well they do at each is going to then just support them in that next level. And then the Mars return is the beginning, and consolidation cycles that understanding what's going on in the brain at each of these stages can really help you understand and give you a good idea of what's developing in your child and how to help.
I think it also helps relieve parents of what am I doing wrong?
Right. Yeah.
Saying, no, this is not my fault. He's just going through this phase.
Exactly. Or, he doesn't really, he's not really angry at me. He's not really hating me or like us or his life. He's figuring it all out still, and it's emotional and has a lot of layers to it. And then Cornelia, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit to your experimenting with the solar return chart and following Mars.
Yeah, I started doing that with my grandson because I wanted to see if I could correlate the Mars returns with what was happening in his life, because I did keep a journal of his life as if he was writing it himself, so I always had that to refer to. Okay, this is what's happening and how it correlates with the astrology. And it's quite effective. I think I haven't developed it fully yet. I'm hoping to write a second book in which I will talk about what's going on at each different age and how that correlates with what's going on with the Mars in the chart.
Awesome.
And the other transits at the same time.
Gotcha. And with the solar return, you say you look to what house the Mars is traveling in for
Right.
further guidance?
Yes. Because that's where the energy is going to be.
I see.
Wherever you see the Mars, that's where the energy is. And what kind of aspects is something helping it or is something impeding it? What are going to be some of the problems? Because we're dealing with Mars all the way through. If you think each stage has to do with becoming independent from the previous stage. I'm not a baby anymore. Now I'm a tween, or whatever. So I think it helps with your overall understanding of this journey we're all embarking on from birth and trying to understand what it's for. Absolutely. It must be there for a reason.
Right. Okay. Absolutely. I totally agree. That's
the other thing astrology does. It kind of pulls it together and says, okay, well, we all know about cycles, and history runs in cycles. The whole world runs in cycles. The body runs in cycles. So we have to keep learning more and more about it.
Absolutely. And so speaking of learning, our next stop is Mercury.
Right.
So, Mars rules the brain, Mercury rules the nerves. So understanding your child's Mercury and their learning style and, how they process information and it's going to help fine tune this information to meet your child's development, in their own unique way, based on the way that they learn, the way that they communicate, the way they process information, the way they use logic and reason, and how they develop those skills. That's a whole next step in terms of, because in astrology, we say Mercury is like our learning, how we learn or speak or, process information, but the brain is actually doing the work. Right. It's happening in the brain, but it sends messages through the body. right?
Right.
And so that's the nervous system. So it's sending the messages. So that's why we call Mercury the messenger planet. It's basically sending the messages from the brain, right? So
I think it's also by doing all these things we can understand about, we don't separate mind and body. It's all one whole. You know, an individual is a whole. You are your mind, you are your body, you are your brain. It all works together. You can't separate them.
Right. Love it. And that's why the work that Cornelia and I are doing is trying to like sort of build on this, understanding your child's, temperament, and then understanding, how they learn and behave and figure out who they are, and then how the brain develops and how that works its way into the body and in their expression, and so we're trying to do these talks and workshops in a way that build on to help really give you a foundation for learning how to apply this and astrology to your child and to yourself and to your own journey, of parenting. So I find it very, very fascinating and so invaluable. So I really,
because we can also look back at our own parenting and compare it.
oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And realize that, yes, parents make mistakes, but usually unintentionally.
Yes. Yeah, that's another reason why I love teaching this stuff, is because it really creates compassion for you as a parent, self-compassion, and realize that they're on their journey. We're all on our journey, and it's okay. We're going to make mistakes. It's part of it. That's why they put erasers on pencils, right?
Right.
So yeah, I'm thrilled. I know this was really, long, comprehensive, but we really feel like it's invaluable information. And
yeah.
it's so useful to parents, I think. And so feel free to, submit questions here in the group. Go back and check out the Mars workshop if you missed that one, or even the temperament. And all of the things that we're doing, they stand alone. They're really great, and you can get a lot out of them individually, but we're also trying to create them and build them, in a way that they build on each other to help the entire, to show the process and help the process of raising our kids. Because when you're in the thick of it, you don't really have time to look at all those big life transits that are going to come down the line. Stay really present, know where you're at, what stage you're in, and work your way through that. And I think this is a great tool to have, because you can then look, oh yeah, he's this age, he's moved into this stage. Let me go back and revisit that talk that they did and all the tips and tools that Cornelia and Dominique shared to help remind you of where they're at. So hopefully this becomes a resource and a tool that you can hold on to and use for years to come.
Yes, and I'd like to mention one other thing. It's important to understand that we're trying to give you information that connects with astrology, but that doesn't mean that you become addicted to astrology. Oh, is the moon and what's happening? No, you don't want to become addicted. And we're trying to look at it in a holistic kind of way, how it all connects with a human being. And so we want to produce wonderful, happy, healthy, functional kids.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I don't, whenever parents start, they have these babies and they're looking at their Saturn and like these hard aspects they might be having in their chart, I'm like, just come back. Don't look there. Don't read about that, be present, and, this is fun exploration and there's so much to learn, but really presence and observation and understanding what they need in the moment is where you're going to do your best for your child. And that's why learning the astrology as you go, oh, now they're in this phase, and oh, now I see what's happening astrologically. And a lot of the learning comes in hindsight. I knew my child is a Pisces and has a Pisces moon and stuff, but as he grew, I've started to see that development, So it's like you can understand the foundation and work with the lay of the land, but you really have to just be present, allow it to happen, and know yourself and how you're different than your child is
Right.
another priceless thing, I think, because you can look at your own life in retrospect and the larger transits or the way you were parented, which is why conscious parenting starts with really understanding yourself and your own life and who you are, because that's going to influence how you parent and how you approach parenting, how you approach your child's relationship with your child, and how you nurture your child. And then understanding all of these great, scientific, stages that they're going through, the development stages they naturally go through, and how that is unique based on their astrology is fascinating.
Mhm.
And that's why I'm excited to get into learning styles next, because I think it's going to be powerful for parents to understand the different ways that our children learn, and I think even understanding the temperament, when you taught me, when I took your course and learned about Joe's temperament, and realizing how that affected him in school, and the level of distractibility he had, and watching it as he's gotten older and gone through these stages, how he's had longer attention spans, how if he's really interested in something, he can sit for hours and do an entire Lego set, where you're like, wow, like he used to be, so easily distracted. So it's really fascinating to see the development process happening in real time.
Right.
So, well, I'm so grateful for all your wisdom and teaching, Cornelia.
Oh God, thanks.
I am. I mean, you're you have so much information, you've done so much research. You bring so much value to my group and to this, this program we're doing together. And it means a lot to me. And I love soaking up everything I can from you. Learning and learning and learning. And I love to see the correlation in the astrology, because it's
Okay, I do too.
So I really, really appreciate it. Thank you everyone for being here. And definitely come ask questions in the group or drop them here, and go check out some of the other workshops that we've done if you've missed them. And join our community and support this learning together. Thank you so much, Cornelia. Again, I appreciate it.